Hey guys, today I want to talk about something that has helped me become a better artist. And it's a very easy skill we can all learn. I've talked to so many artists who say the same thing, that they're never bored. So why is that? It's because looking at your world through the lens of an artist is endlessly fun, it's interesting, it can be tedious, and it's so stimulating. And you're probably doing it already without even realizing it. But in order to take it to the next level, you have to practice mindful observation. So the next time you're on a car ride, instead of mindlessly observing the fields and the trees go by, wondering if you should get ice cream.
Some ice cream feels right.
Yeah, you should definitely get ice cream. Start practicing mindful observation by giving yourself a goal. For instance, what 3 colors would you mix to paint that sky? Or if you want an added challenge, what steps would you take to paint this view with only 20 brush strokes? This sort of intense observation might seem like overkill, but by becoming mindful of our environment on a daily basis, this information has a way of creeping into our artwork. I like to practice the art of slow walking. It's achieved by taking a walk outside, even if it's just on the way to the post office, but rather than rushing to the destination or staring at my phone the entire way, I'm taking long, slow steps. With each step, looking left, right, up, down. Every single tree, every shadow, every fence or car becomes a target for the mind to mentally unravel and observe. And taking the same route every day doesn't have to be boring. Each time, just keenly observe all the little details. I'm sure you're going to notice different things about the lighting one day and color the next. And each season presents an opportunity for discovery. I often visit the same locations during each season in order to observe and capture those differences. Color changes are especially important, and depending on the subject, you'll see drastic differences in the colors from summer to winter. On poor weather days, I'm stuck in the studio, so I rely heavily on these memories and observations combined with my reference photos and video. Let me take you on a journey and show you how and why I make decisions about taking reference photos and videos, and then how I use them back in the studio. If you own a smartphone, you have everything you need for your fact-finding missions. I specifically chose my smartphone for the camera. But at the rate technology is improving these days, you don't have to spend that much to get a decent camera. And it's all about how you use those images anyway. Sometimes I do take my DSLR and go all out with my fancy lenses. But on this particular excursion, I planned on painting. However, once I got to the location, it was so incredibly windy I could barely stand up. I had to have a vice grip on my phone so it didn't blow out of my hand. So I just made the most of it, and I took as many references, photos, and video as I could. Here are some of my top tips for getting the most out of your photos. For every view that catches my eye, I take a few different types of photos. I do horizontal and vertical versions, and I always take a wide shot as well as a close-up shot. This just ensures that no matter what angle I was viewing it at or how well I focused, there's always going to be usable information for me back in the studio. All right, I just arrived and already the clouds are coming in. It looks like it might get really stormy. A minute ago it was bright and sunny, and now it looks like rain. So I'm not sure how long I actually have here. but it's such a gorgeous spot. I really want to paint this. I'm gonna go closer to the water, maybe to take some photos, and at least I'll get some good references and videos that I can use back in the studio. Sometimes that's just how it goes. The weather has changed, so I guess we'll just make the most of it. The weather gods are always playing tricks on me. This is just something I'm so used to by now that I've learned to make the most of it by, getting to the location, realizing or figuring out whether I can paint or not. And if not, I just use as much time as I can with the light that I have to take references, both photo and video. So one of my big tips is always take video, because even though our cameras can be pretty good at getting the information of light and shadow, they aren't experts. And a lot of times they leave out information that is really important when you're back in the studio painting. So when I take photos, I try to edit them back in the studio, both a light version and a dark version, which I'll show you in a little bit. But the video is really what gives me a sense of the place and triggers my memory of how it felt to stand there. Another tip I have is to not just rush in and take photos, because, you can do that, but my suggestion is to maybe find a spot to sit and just look, just stare, just have a cuppa, have a snack, and really soak everything in. The sights, the smells, the sounds, everything. Later in the studio, you'll really benefit from this slower, considered approach because you're soaking in all of the things that make this place special. You're experiencing it, not just capturing it in a photo. Even if I'm getting rained on or it's freezing, I'll still try to take a little time for this. Not long ago, I was standing way up there on that edge, looking down at this beach. Thought it was gonna be a perfect day for painting, but it's spitting rain in between beautiful little moments of sun. So at the moment, I'm just enjoying it. I'm just kind of making mental notes of the colors that I see, especially in the waves and the reflected sand, so that when I actually, if I paint here or back at home, either way, I'll have kind of a game plan in my head about how to mix colors. Also enjoying a cuppa. But now the light has changed so dramatically that I'll take a couple more reference photos before I leave, since it'll be a completely different scene, but still just absolutely beautiful. Something to keep in mind is that you don't need these photos to be gallery worthy, meaning they don't have to be the best photos you've ever taken or even worth posting on social media. These are purely for your information to capture the colors, the textures, everything you need for painting. So as much variety as you can is best, even if you have to zoom in and crop the photo later and it ends up a little bit blurry. That color information is still going to help inform your painting. Okay, so I've spent a good hour or so at this location capturing tons of references. Let me take you back to the studio and show you how I handle all of this information and how I apply it to my paintings. File management is a really important part of my process, and over the years I've developed a workflow that works really well for me. On my external hard drive, I have 3 folders within my photography album: JPEGs, RAW, and video. Raw means anything that is unedited, so this is where I put everything straight out of my camera. However, this folder system is not great for going through your photos and editing, so I actually use a program called Adobe Bridge. This came with my Adobe CS6 suite, and I've been using it for, 10 years. I used to use Lightroom as well, but this is much more efficient now for my process. There are tons of file management softwares out there, but this is just my preferred method. So first, I'll open up Adobe Bridge and take you through my quick process. First things first, we're going to cull our images. That just means we're going to get rid of all the images we don't want. This will save tons of space on our hard drives over the years. As you probably saw when I was out taking photos, I take a lot of images just in case. And now that I'm back in the studio, I can actually look through on a large scale and see if they have enough information or if they're just kind of overkill and I don't need them. Just click and delete. That's it. It's super simple. And then you're left with a really great selection of images that you can edit. To save time, I do everything in batches. So I'll select all of the images that I need and right-click and say Open in Camera Raw. This means that it'll open Photoshop, but we're not quite in Photoshop yet. It's a little confusing and I don't even know all the details how it works, but it basically opens this separate window. And this is where the magic happens. We can crop our photos, we can change the lightness and the contrast and the saturation. We can do so many things, basically anything you can do in Lightroom or Photoshop. But the best feature, I think, is the synchronize feature, which means if I select multiple photos, I can apply a setting to all of those photos at once, the same way you would do in Lightroom or probably other software. And this saves so much time because a lot of times the photos will have very similar lighting and colors, and I just need to kind of adjust one little thing about each one. So depending on what mood I want to create in my painting, I'll edit the photo drastically or barely at all. Ultimately, I just want an accurate representation of what I saw that day or what I felt in that location. And since cameras don't always do it justice, you can only do so much. But this is an opportunity to kind of make the photos work the best for you. And then when you're done, it's super simple. You just select all of them and export. And this is where you can name them, you can number them, and everything is super streamlined. And then they'll export into my JPEG folder and they'll be named properly. It's magical. I love it. So now let me show you how I would use these images when I'm setting up everything to paint. I can close all my fancy software and go back to my file explorer. I mentioned earlier that I like to use a darker version and a lighter version of my photos when I'm painting. The reason for that is I feel like it gives me a much broader sense of this place. In this case, my raw files were very dark, so I just opened my raw file on the left and my edited version on the right. And I will also open my video, and this is where I'll be able to kind of look back and trigger my memories of how it felt to be standing in that location. And I'll keep my video playing throughout the painting session, and I'll put these images either up on my monitor really big next to where I'm painting or on my iPad. After spending time at the location and editing the photos, I've already become pretty familiar with the overall sense of the place. So by the time I sit down to paint, I have a pretty good idea of what I want to paint or what view I want to do, but not always. So I still spend time going through my edited photos. I'll zoom in, I'll pan around, I'll watch some of the videos, just spending a little time in front of the canvas, triggering those memories. My goal when painting is to capture the mood and my emotional reaction to a location, so I don't necessarily have to study every single detail in the painting. So this stage is more about digging deeper and making a connection to the place. I also want to point out that I often use more than one reference photo or video for a painting, so I'm not necessarily copying the composition of the photo. It's more about getting an idea of the lighting and the colors and understanding like in this case, how does the water and the sand interact and how does it reflect, and just all of the interesting things that are going on with wet sand. And lately, I've been really obsessed with painting wet sand and beach scenes because it's almost like an optical illusion, and it's a really interesting puzzle to figure out while I'm painting. So I've been studying a lot and practicing a lot with various mediums, and today I'm going to paint with oil. Most of the time, what I'm doing is looking at the photo or the video, and oftentimes I'll squint my eyes, so I'm distilling all of the information, and what that does is get rid of all the detail and even a lot of the color, so I mostly am seeing the values of the reference. And this is really important because values are our most important aspect of our painting. You could use any colors you want in a painting, but if your values aren't correct, it's going to be a really flat and probably boring painting. But that's a whole other topic for another day. I'll squint at the photo, I'll look down at my palette, I'll squint at that as well, and that will reduce the color, and so I see more of the values, and I just take it slowly and I start mixing what I think is a match. But even if I'm like stylizing the colors, because I really love doing that, I still try to focus on the values. If you're a beginner, I think it really helps to stick with a limited palette because you aren't enticed to use all of the colors. It's when you have all the colors out on your palette, it's almost like you're in a candy shop and you just want to taste everything. So if you limit your options, it's going to force you to really hone in and think about the values of each of those colors. Which one is going to represent your darks? Which one will be your highlights? You get the idea. If I did a good job capturing and editing the reference, I don't have to change the composition that much, although a lot of times while I'm painting, I'll be adding the different brushstrokes and the colors, and something will just jump out to me and I'll think, what if I do this? And I'll maybe like do a totally different brush stroke or an angle of a form, and all of a sudden my painting has transformed into something totally new and unique. It's inspired by the reference, but it's not sticking to it religiously. There's no way around it, but repetition is absolutely crucial. The more you work with a medium, the more you understand all the little nuances about how to use it. And that really helps when it comes to fulfilling your vision of the painting. So yes, you can copy a reference photo exactly, and I think that's a really important thing for someone who's into hyperrealism. But if you're more into stylized artwork or something that has evidence of the artist in the final piece, it's really, really crucial that you understand how to use the medium first, and then your painting skill becomes a tool for you to represent your vision. So we covered a lot in this video. Next time, I'm going to show you how I invent my own references or make concept art for a painting based on a client's description, and show you the complete process of this oil painting. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me through this long video. And I also want to say a massive thank you to all of my viewers and people who comment and like the videos. We just hit 10,000 subscribers, which is just huge for me. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for helping me live my dream. Okay, I'll see you guys again soon.